try to inspire our games on things not traditionally seen in the video game industry. We kind of move away from stuff like you see, like the typical blockbuster movies or the war-themed games, everything. We look into non-conventional sources of inspiration. We looked at classic art for Rock of Ages, the painting of Hieronymus Bosch for Zeno Clash.
Like John Blanche,
great illustrator. It's a great illustrator that we used as reference for Zeno Clash. So I think the visual style for our games like really stand apart from many games done, and I think it's one of the things that people instantly recognize about Hasting games. We set up a bunch of computers, put it in the living room, and we worked for a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years on Zeno Clash.
For Zeno Clash, and it was the studio at the beginning. It was 7 people.
Just 7 people. So a lot of people, I think, don't know that detail about Zeno Clash, first-person game.
Because if you look at it, it has really good production values.
I mean, obviously not on the level of AAA titles, but you look at it, it doesn't look like a game made by 7 people.
Sure.
Yeah, but we're definitely indie both in size and also in spirit. I mean, we do games that people, they look at them and it's, wow, this is weird. So that's definitely an indie trade.
It's not only the visual aspect. We like to make a mix of genres that you don't see very often, because for Zeno Clash we did the first-person brawler that hadn't been done very successfully previously. I think we did it really well.
There were some very good cases like Condemned and Riddick, but we did a totally different approach on it. It's very difficult to compare either game with anything out there in the market.
Which is, it's a difficult balance to strike, right, between originality and formulaic development.
Yeah.
Because if you're too far into either direction, you're going to have either a very boring and maybe successful product, or something that's so far off into the fringe that nobody understands what it is, and even on a marketing level. How do you communicate it?
Well, it's kind of. I remember Andres came here to sort of pitch Rock of Ages initially at GDC, and when he sort of gave the explanation of how it worked, there wasn't that much interest. But as soon as people saw the sort of teaser video we made, they started laughing and seeing where it was going.
They could grasp right away what it was about. They saw this huge rock with a funny face, kind of rolling on top of
the teaser that's going to be post-edited into the upper area of the video here that you're going to be seeing as we're talking about it. So talk about it as if it's playing above you.
Okay. It ends up being sort of like an obstacle course, where the obstacle course is set up by both people, and you're trying to get past your opponent's obstacle course faster than he is getting through yours.
We have a lot of indie developers that use BigWorld, for instance, and a lot of friends of ours in our network who are independent developers making either tablet or iPhone games, PC, whatever. What kind of tips would you give them as far as going the self-development, non-funding, self-publishing, basically like, strapping as many hardcore weights to yourself to make the process as difficult as possible, but in the end, so you hold as much of the product still in your hands as possible?
If you have the options and you have the funding in order to be able to produce something, the first thing I would really recommend is making something that's very unique and different from what's out there. Because if you're going to try to do something that's similar to something that's already maybe established in the industry, you won't have the resources to compete on production values. Obviously, if we would have chosen to do a World War themed shooter, maybe it wouldn't have been terrible, but compared to Call of Duty, there's just no chance. I mean, you have to stand out with creativity rather than production values. So that's a very strong thing in terms of getting your IP and getting your work out there.
I think that once we have that covered, the rest happens on its own.
Yeah.
For us with Xenoclash, we did a very small demo, but it kind of included all the main elements that made it stand out. It was the first-person melee combat that had been shown before. It had a little bit of it had the art style, the traditional art style.
So
when we showed it to Valve, it immediately stood out. They immediately understood that they were looking at something that
was different.
That they couldn't find anywhere else.
Right.
So that enabled us to get a licensing deal, and from that point on, we were.
But it's tough, obviously. In our case, we just simply said, what are the essential things we have to spend on? Don't spend on marketing. Don't spend on unnecessary things like printing on magazines.
Yeah, that's another important thing. We did a lot of effort in trying to make our product reach out through the internet, but using resources that they don't involve costing things that were very expensive. We put out a blog, we put out some forums. I personally wrote to hundreds of webpage blog sites and got in touch with them personally. I didn't send out this generic email with copy to everyone saying, hey, check out my game. I spend my time addressing each writer personally, and
you have to do those things. I mean, you're not well known, you're new, but if you have something that looks interesting, they will react to it, they will respond. There's a lot of experience you get from trying to go from a mod developer into a serious business, and so many mistakes you're going to make in the process. That is
actually our first attempt was we failed.
We failed. We actually, before Xenoclash, we were making a game that's like the
spiritual predecessor of Xenoclash. It was called Xenozoic, and we tried to do too many stuff, being too little. We didn't know how to focus on key aspects that were important. We needed just a few key elements that made the game design stand out, and we tried to do a little bit of everything. Oh, this is cool on Deus Ex, let's take this. Oh, this is cool on traditional shooter, let's take this also. And
so we made a sort of hybrid RPG FPS that was a disaster. So an interesting part of our story is, and we talked about it before, is that we got to where we are by going through a failure. We had a failed project which we worked on for a year and a half. Still more as a mod development studio rather than a company, but we were dedicating enormous hours and enormous amount of efforts into getting it done, and it didn't work.
And we could have easily thrown out the towel
at that moment
and I'm gonna go be a banker.
Yeah. Or something else. But the case is that by looking at what we had done wrong and
learning from it,
we were able to turn around the game and repicture it and redesign it, which eventually became the Xenoclash.
There's a small family. We all know each other in Chile.
It would be very weird that there was a game developer and that you didn't know who he is. It's that small. I mean, there's very few people working in the industry.
About 10 years ago, I'd say
even much less.
Less than half of these companies didn't even exist. I'd say the stronger gaming environment is not older than 3 years. Well, with the growth of the mobile environment and the social games, people it's really difficult to enter into a game development if you're not doing mobile or social gaming, because I understand the complexity of going to consoles or to the PC market. Sometimes they involve more
technological high standards that you have.
So that's enabled possibly more studios from Chile to start investing and making their own games and being independent and not having to invest so much money in making their titles, so much time.